which was a total blast, and I loved it, and I'm awfully glad to be back. And actually, I was here, what was the date?
February 2nd.
February 2nd of this year, right after I announced my candidacy for governor, because I knew that I wanted to get right in with college students and make sure that you know who I am and what I'm doing, and if you want to get involved, you've got an opportunity. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll open it up and make it more of a dialogue, because I always think that's more interesting for me, but it also keeps me focused on addressing the things that you guys are interested in. So I am a lifelong Michiganer. I love the state of Michigan. I am proud to be from Michigan. But I'm looking around at the Michigan that my daughters are growing up in, and it hardly resembles the one that I think of when I talk about my Michigan pride. Because there was a point in time where the public school system in this state was the best on the planet. There was a point in time where people packed up their children and their families and moved to Michigan because you had a great opportunity at a good paying job. It paid you enough you could buy the car you were making and raise your family up and retire here with dignity. And there was a point in time when this state lived up to our motto, the Great Lakes State. And right now I look around at the Michigan that you're in, that I'm in, and my kids are growing up in, and I see a state that ranks 41st in 4th grade literacy in our own country because of 25 years of Betsy DeVos agenda, by the way. I see a state that has families who haven't had a raise in 10 years, are working 2 or 3 minimum wage paying jobs and cannot pay the bills. And I see a state that has a city full of families that still can't bathe their children in the water, much less give them a glass of water at the dinner table. We deserve better in Michigan. We deserve leaders who aren't going to try to manage our expectations, but they're going to fight for our aspirations again. Leaders who know how to get things done and are going to work with everybody who wants to solve a problem and take on anyone who stands in our way. Now, I served in the Michigan legislature for 14 years. I am proud of having been the leader of the resistance for all 14, having been on the front line and opening up the doors to the Capitol and leading the fight against attacks on collective bargaining when all of the Republicans tried to take away our ability to band together and have a voice to negotiate our employment. We've got some tough fights ahead of us, but here's what I know about Michigan is that we are a state full of people who want a level playing field, who have grit and determination, and who are ready, I think, to make the big change in this state that we so deserve. Now, when I graduated from, sorry, I went to Michigan State, but when I graduated, thank you, one person, I taught at U of M, I'm trying to straddle it, but anyway, when I graduated from Michigan State, you know, like a lot of my fellow, you know, my friends that I graduated with, I could have left, but I wanted to stay here because my family's here and because I do love this state. And it's because I was here when my mom got sick with brain cancer, I was able to take care of her at the end of her life. In my first term in the legislature, you know, they say the 5 most stressful things that will ever happen to you are getting married, the birth of a child, starting a new job, moving your home, and the death of a loved one. All 5 of those things happened to me in my first term in the state legislature. I was simultaneously caring for my mom at the end of her life and my daughter at the beginning of hers. And I tell that story not because it changed my values or fundamentally changed my worldview, but it eliminated my patience for problem solving. It eliminated my ability to watch someone who politicizes a problem instead of trying to fix it. When I was in the legislature, I was known for a lot of things. One was being a strong advocate on behalf of women's health issues. Thank you. When the Republicans pushed forward legislation to create yet another barrier for women who are electing every option of health care that should be available to us, and they shut women out of the conversation. They didn't hold a single hearing. They didn't listen to a single woman or a medical provider. I took the microphone and told my story of having been assaulted on campus as a freshman. Not a story I'd ever told publicly before, but because I knew how important it was that a face be put to the women who were being impacted by this law that my colleagues didn't want to hear from and weren't even interested in talking to. When the Republicans pushed through this legislation that would have created a license to bully, we were trying to get protections for kids in our schools for 8 years, and the Republicans finally decided to move something. But at the last minute, they changed it so that bullying was excused if it was for a moral or religious reason. Right, I see the look on your face. Exactly. It was the exception that ate the whole rule. We took the floor and we fought back and we won, and that was actually 6 years ago today. But when these tough fights happen, we gotta stand up and fight back. But I'm tired of being a leader of the resistance. It's time for us to start setting the agenda. It is time for us to demand affordable 4-year degrees for people in this state. It is it's time for us to demand early childhood education for every kid in the state, no matter what zip code you live in, or what school district you live in, or what family you're born into. It is time for us to demand accountability from the people that are supposed to be working for us. That means getting rid of gerrymandering. That means getting rid of the emergency management. And that means taking Michigan from worst in the nation in terms of transparency and ethics to best by exposing our executive office and our legislative branches to FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, and transparency, real transparency. We got a lot of work to do here in Michigan, but we're up for it. We can do this, and we are going to do this. I jumped in this race back in January. After the last election, I woke up like a lot of Michiganders and thought, we gotta get organized, and I gotta put all this anger and anxiety that I have into something constructive. So I declared my candidacy in January, and I've been getting across our state for 10 months. Been in 46 out of the 83 counties, and I'm getting into every single one of them before this is through. Because one of the things I know is that we cannot take anyone or any vote or any community for granted as we build this together. That's why I'm sending volunteers, I don't know, are they really volunteers if I'm sending them? We'll have to ask Jeremy. Are you really volunteers if I'm sending you to the Upper Peninsula this weekend?
Well.
But we are sending people up to the UP to help Sarah Conbenzi win the 109th. So anyone who wants to get involved in the campaign this week, there's one more. I hope a lot of you are involved in campaigns. I know a lot of you are going to be people that I am voting for in the future, and I think that's fantastic because we've got to get more people to start running for office again. We've got to get more women, more people of color. We've got to get more young people in office, and that's why I'm so glad to be here with all of you and see how many of you are turning out 12 months before an election, talking about something that's that far away because you know how important it is to you. So with that, I will stop the monologue and let's open this up and make it more of a dialogue. That's all right. Yes, thank you.
I have a twofer for you.
Yes.
So first, what would you say to like somebody who is currently supporting Abdul? And secondly, what is your stance on marijuana legalization?
Okay, well, first of all, I would say, you know what, Abdul's a nice guy. And when you look at all the Democrats, whether it's Abdul El-Sayed, or it's Shri Tanadar, or it is Bill Cobbs, or Pentil White, and yes, there's four other people in this race. All of our platforms look very similar. Here's what I know, though. After 14 years in the Michigan legislature, I was on the front line of a lot of tough fights. I was the leader of the resistance. Long before Bernie Sanders talked about free college, I introduced the plan right here in Michigan. Long before anyone was talking about how prevalent harassment is in our society with the Me Too campaign, I told my story on the floor. Long before everyone's embraced the $15 minimum wage, I negotiated the cost of living increase into Michigan's minimum wage, which means on January 1st it's going to bump up. We have more work to do on that front, but I've been on the front lines doing these things. And so I think right now, after 7 years of Rick Snyder, and 10 months of Donald Trump, we gotta go in ready to work on day one to get things done. I am proud of the fact that I'm fearless and stand up for the things I believe in and take the whole Republican establishment on. But I'm also proud that I was able to get to the table and negotiate Medicaid expansion, which now we have 630,000 Michiganders. We have coverage we didn't before. And I think that those are critical aspects of who I am and what I've done that set me apart from the rest of the field. Yeah. Marijuana legalization. Yes, so I mentioned my mom earlier, taking care of my mom at the end of her life with brain cancer. She died of brain cancer, and couple things that became very clear to me as a caregiver. One was, at the time we outlawed stem cell research, embryonic stem cell research, and even though there was some research going on here at U of M, it was behind locked doors and it was very small because the state precluded it, even though there was some permissibility on the federal level with a few lines that had been approved. I saw a problem, and I tried to introduce embryonic stem cell research in the legislature, but couldn't get it through. So I partnered with Joe Schwartz, who I know some of you have here at the Ford School, and we co-chaired the stem cell campaign, which was on the ballot in 2008. And I did it because I know what the promise of cures means for people like my mom, but I also know what it means for our economy. I also know what it means for a research university like this who's trying to recruit talent into Michigan. And when you have a backward law in the books, it makes it a lot harder to do. That same year, I'm getting to it. I know, we're talking about marijuana. I'm getting it. Thank you for your patience. But that same year, we had medical marijuana on the ballot as well. And it was not something that in 2008, which doesn't seem like that long ago to me, but it might to a lot of you, people were not embracing medical marijuana at that point. They were very fearful of it, frankly. And I embraced it because I knew that after going through what I did with my mom, anything that might create a cure or alleviate pain was something that I was all for. And I endorsed both of those at the time, which was way before I think a lot of people got comfortable with it. I believe that our state is moving toward legalizing recreational marijuana. I am seeing the activity around the petition signature. I talk to people all across the state. So what I say is, all right, let's do it, but let's tax it and regulate it. And so I have said yes, unequivocally. Someone said pot from potholes. I don't know if we're going to dedicate it all.
So I'm from the UP, and like the only time I feel like the UP essentially gets attention is when like to death of like John Keeble and the special election that's going on. So like everyone I know that like lives in the UP and that's politically involved feels like it's constantly forgotten. So like I went to a Division D high school that was like K through 12, and like most of it was below the poverty line, and like most of the money we get is from like we just got $10,000 donation from a guy in the like district, and that feels like the largest amount of money we've ever gotten. And I'm still saying because I was really close to it. But so like how do you address that like whole like sense of like forgottenness that's like in the UP?
Yeah, so where are you from in the UP?
Munising.
All right, fantastic. So my daughter's name is Sydney, and she wears a little shirt that says Sydney's Munising. Yes. So anyway, I love the UP. I went to the Upper Peninsula in February earlier this year, and went to 11 out of the 15 counties. And I get to the Upper Peninsula at least once or twice a year because it is a phenomenal place, and most Michiganders never even get across the bridge, which is incredible. And as you see, I chose the bridge as my symbol for a lot of reasons, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But it's by actually engaging with people and talking to people that you really have a better appreciation for what the issues are that we have to confront. In St. Ignace, I was talking to a realtor who she was just about to sell this huge piece of property overlooking the water. I mean, just phenomenal. But the guy pulled out of the business at the end. He was going to develop his business there and create a number of jobs, and because there's no broadband. And so really having a better appreciation for what the lack of broadband means, just in the fundamental education of the children of the Upper Peninsula, much less the economic development losses that we're missing out on because it's not there. Now in Marquette, of course, they're wired because of the university, but that's not true across the Upper Peninsula. energy costs are insane. Because they gotta get it from another state, and that's something that only by being there and understanding, spending time to listen, becomes a priority on the platform. So I think the best way that I can show how much I care about the UP is by being there, and by talking about these issues, and not just talking about them when I'm in the peninsula, but building them into a platform. But I'd be curious what you think is the most important thing that I can do as a legislator, or I mean as a former legislator, as a governor, as a policymaker, as a leader. Advise me.
So I think a really large issue up there is like just poverty in general. Because like I think I'm like just being able to like access like the internet or even like cell phone service, because like where I live with my dad, he doesn't have cell phone service, and that blows people away. And like on the like road I grew up on, it's still unpaved, it's still like just a gravel road with like trailers along the side of it. So just like the issue of access because of poverty.
Right, yeah. So one of the things that we know is that when we stop investing in ourselves, we've lost a lot of ground. We've got too few people in every discipline across this state. That means we've got too few four-year degree holders, we've got too few community college degree holders, we've got too few people in the skilled trades. That focusing on how we get people into skills so that we can get back to work in high-wage jobs is absolutely essential. And as we think about things, especially when you feel like rebuilding the Sulaks, which is an international issue, and it's a homeland security issue, and it's something that's long overdue, that would be something that would put people to work in great paying jobs, and it would dramatically improve the quality of life. What other state agencies can we move to the UP? I've got a friend who says, we gotta move the state lottery to the Upper Peninsula. I don't know if that's the answer, but I'm interested in ideas. You know, I'm interested in really having a plan that is about all 83 counties in the state, not just the ones where, you know, people are most concentrated. So, what year are you here?
I'm a sophomore.
All right. And you can't call your dad because he doesn't have cell service.
Yeah, he got a booster.
That's great. Are there other Upers here? I heard a lot of people clap when I talked about Sarah's race, so you're just engaged and you know what's going on. All right. Yes?
Right now there's a bill being debated in the Michigan State Congress about exemptions for gun permits in schools. I'm wondering what you think about that and gun legislation in the state more generally.
I believe that we should not have guns in schools or on campuses or in stadiums or in churches or in hospitals.
Wonderful.
That was easy. We're doing that easy. Okay, yes.
My name is Levi, and I'm the president of Students for a Sensible Drug Policy here. And first, I'd like to thank you so much for your previous answer regarding marijuana. And as an aside for everyone here, I have ballots here, so if you want to see me after, but anyways, my question for you is, given your time in the legislature and seeing so much political infighting between the Republicans and Democrats, how would you, as a governor, set to solve the issue between so much divisiveness in political discourse and just policymaking in general, and not just in Michigan, just because people are here.
Well, I love this question. I think it's really important. I was addressing the Arab American path last night and decided I was going to just kind of scuttle my usual remarks in favor of talking about the kind of leadership that I think we need and that we deserve. Right now in this environment, it's scary. It's scary for a lot of people in our communities across our state, but across our nation. This ugliness coming out of the White House has emboldened hateful rhetoric and action that has followed. And I think that this next election is the prime opportunity to show what leadership really looks like, the kind of leadership that we deserve. And I'm talking about governor's races, I'm talking about Secretary of State, attorneys general, legislators. I think that this is, all of these rallies, all of these marches, all of these conferences don't mean anything unless we translate it into election victories next year. And I said I picked the bridge for a reason, and I talked about this last night in my speech there. But you know, the Mackinac Bridge was open to traffic 60 years ago yesterday, and it was a feat of engineering no one thought was possible. They didn't think you could ever build a suspension bridge span that long, 5 miles long. And the people in Michigan, a Democratic governor and a Republican legislature came together and said, yes, we can do it. And it was Michigan ingenuity, Michigan materials, the iron and the steel, and it was a desire to unify people. And we created this wonder, you know, one of the wonders, you know, in the country and around the world because of that drive. And I think that that's a great symbol for how I view this point in Michigan's time, in our lives, that this is an opportunity. Now, I'm a Democrat. I am proud to be a Democrat. But I also am quick to highlight some of the victories that we all benefited from when I worked with Republicans, like Medicaid expansion, like Detroit lighting. There are lights on in Detroit because Democrats and Republicans came together and made that a priority. That these are times where we need leaders who never compromise our values, but always seek to collaborate and solve problems. I was raised in a household, my dad was a Republican and my mom was a Democrat. You know, as a legislator, I think I earned a reputation for being tough, but also being quick to solve problems. And I think that right now is more important than ever. And I guess I'll just add one more thing. When I was in the legislature, I served with 3 different governors. There was one who was a lot better able to get an agenda accomplished than the other 2. And that was the first one I served with, John Engler. Now, a lot of you don't probably know who he is, but he was a Republican governor, so it might sound weird that I'm complimenting this Republican governor, but he came out of the legislature. He understood state government better than either his 2 successors. He knew where the levers of power were in the executive office, and he knew how to get things done. And I'm a lot more like him in terms of my background than either of the other 2 since. We need people who can develop relationships, who have a backbone to see through an agenda, but can use and leverage every ounce of power that's in that governor's office to make things happen for the state of Michigan, to make our agenda a reality. And I think that that's really important when thinking about how we're going to overcome some of these challenges we know will continue to be there. Yes?
Along a similar subject on the bridge, what are your plans for preserving the Great Lakes, specifically about Pipeline 5?
Yes. So Line 5, I don't know how many of you know what Line 5 is, but of course it comes up everywhere, and I'm glad that you raised it. So let's talk about one of the most amazing assets in the state is our water, right? We are home to, or surrounded by 21% of the world's fresh water. We're so lucky for that. But because of that abundance, we've been lousy stewards of it. We've taken it for granted. We've let companies like Nestle pull as much water out of the ground as they want. We have algae blooms in inland lakes, and we have a pipeline underneath the Straits of Mackinac. We have to become world leaders in water stewardship. We owe it to ourselves to say we have brains, we have universities, and we've got water. We shouldn't be laggards in the world. We should be the leaders in this world. One of the interesting things is that the state of Israel, they are the best stewards of water on the planet. You know why? Because they didn't have it. And so they recognized how important it was and created systems and built science all around water management. And we're the exact opposite story. So what I envision in Michigan is creating a Department of the Great Lakes and Water that is solely focused to water stewardship and ensuring that every Michiganer has access to affordable clean water. but it also means getting line 5 out from underneath the streets of Mackinac. And that's gotta be, I've heard some other, people address this issue and say, I'm gonna shut it down on day 1. Now, I'm not gonna tell you something I know can't be done. There's not a secret spigot in the governor's office that you just, you gotta file the appropriate legal order. You gotta go to court. You gotta enjoin an easement. And as a lawyer, I am studying everything to make sure that we are ready on day 1 to go and get that out of the water. You do it wrong and it stays there for a long time, so we gotta do it right. Go ahead, read Yes.
So I have 2 questions. Firstly, Michigan is ranked 15th in terms of drug overdoses in the country. What is your plan for the opioid crisis in Michigan? And the second thing is, I come from a school district, Plymouth Canton, that has struggled in terms of finances for a while because we have budget issues every single year. So we've privatized the buses, privatized janitorial services, pink slipped lots and lots of teachers every single year because there is no way for us to levy a millage under Prop A. So what is your stance on Prop A?
Okay. Schools, the first one was opioid crisis. All right. So, Michigan is, I hate to keep giving you stat after stat about how bad we are, but on their opioid crisis, we are the worst in the Midwest in terms of access to opioids and to heroin overdose. We are the worst in the Midwest. It's because, in large part, that we haven't created the systems on the front end to keep the prescriptions out of hands of people. You know, to come down on it, make sure that we've got a system where doctors are required to check in, that we have a state system that is reliable and up to date. Other states that have done that have curtailed just the writing of prescriptions, which has a huge impact of making sure people don't get, addicted in the first place. And so, just by adopting what the laws that are been promulgated by the National Governors Association, which is Republicans and Democrats together, have said these are our best practices. If Michigan just used those best practices, we'd be eons ahead of where we are right now. The saddest irony, and that's why I point that out to show it. It's not a partisan observation about this governor. It's just a failure, Democrat or Republican, because there are plenty of examples on both sides of the aisle where states are doing it right. Chris Christie is you didn't get that, did you? Okay. Chris Christie is New Jersey. Mike Pence is Indiana. They are doing a great job on opioid, management and prevention of abuse, just by adopting those, that kind of that boilerplate language that the National Governors Association has endorsed. So I think that's step 1. Step 2 has got to be, we've got to create a system where people can get, we recognize it's a disease instead of a moral failing, and that we get people access to treatment so that they can get clean and they can become productive again and be free of the addiction. So we've got a lot of work to do on opioids, but I think that we have to create the wheel here in Michigan. We just got to do what other people are doing, and we will have a much greater outcome. Mental health is something that is really largely untreated in Michigan in terms of when Governor Engler was governor, he eliminated a lot of the institutional mental health facilities, and so I think that's got to be a part of the conversation as well. There's a state that is going to create the answer to opioid addiction. The front end is getting fewer and fewer prescriptions written in the beginning, but the back end is going to be figured out by state. I'd love for Michigan to be the state that does that, and I've been working with actually a friend of mine that I met here at the Ford School on some ideas about how we might make that a reality. But it's a huge problem in every community across our state. And then I've repeated it so I wouldn't forget, and I forgot. Oh, education funding. Okay. So one of the things that this governor did in his first term as governor, and I'm not just going to say it's Rick Snyder's fault, because we've underfunded education for a long time in Michigan. I took on governors in both parties actually who wanted to take money out of the school aid fund and put it into the general fund. When Governor Granholm did it, I said no to her, just like I fought Rick Snyder on it too, because I was afraid that this would be the continuous withdrawal from schools, and it has been. When Governor Snyder introduced his first budget as governor, he gave a big business tax break, and he paid for it by taxing pensions, trying to eliminate the earned income tax credit for the working poor, and he cut schools to pay for it. And I think that tells you more than anything that a budget's not just like a balance sheet, it's a statement of your values. And our statement of our values say that we don't care about education in Michigan like other states do. And we see it in the outcomes in terms of our fourth graders who are 41st in literacy. I remember a superintendent writing to the governor during that debate saying, please declare my school district a prison. Because we spend $40,000 a year to incarcerate a person and $10,000 a year to educate a child in Michigan. And that just tells you about who we are and what our values are. We've got to make a much bigger investment overall in education. Proposal A, we can go back and talk about the, why it didn't fulfill the promises that it was supposed to, and it's long overdue that we assess it and have a real analysis about whether or not we are actually funding a proper education as demanded by our Constitution for our kids. And I think we need to do that, but ultimately, it's not about moving things around, it's about making a much bigger investment in education in Michigan.
Thank you.
And then I'll go.
Yeah, going back to the issue of guns, it's pretty clear right now that our nation has a really terrible epidemic with mass shootings. We have way more than any developed country. So as governor, would you support a ban on semi-automatic weapons, and would you also support mandatory background checks?
Oh, and background checks, absolutely. And, one of the things that anyone who's lived in Michigan for even a little while, and anyone who knows anything about the Michigan legislature, they shut down hunting season. Did you know our legislature shuts down for hunting season? Hunting's a big part of the culture in Michigan, but that doesn't require, but most hunters that I know support, they want to know that people who own weapons are responsible gun owners, and that always comes with a background check. So yes, I do support that. And with regard to semi-automatic weapons, I don't know any hunters that are proposing, that's something that's necessary to that side of kind of our culture in Michigan. So that's also something I'm interested in figuring out what do we need to do as a state on that front. What are your thoughts?
Personally, I don't see any reason that anyone needs a semi-automatic weapon. I definitely think that the cost far outweigh any sort of possible. I don't think you need a semi-automatic weapon to hunt. I don't think it should be allowed.
How many of you grew up in households that had hunters? And I knew your hands. My friend from Unison. All right. Oh, one more question, really?
Because I knew you were gonna say two, so.
Okay. I never do it. Okay. Yes, you know.
Yeah, thank you. When we see the governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey, we've seen that the establishment Republicans have gone to sort of Trump-like tactics on race, releasing ads like MS-13 that harken back to Willie Horton and race baiting. When you think about what the Democratic response as a governor should be to a campaign likely to get dirty like that, given the invitation of Steve Bannon to Macomb County, what do you think should be Democrats' response? And how do we make this a state where people of color want to stay and live?
Thanks for that. Is that what we do when we like the question? You're asking a really important question. And I think that as we watch this Virginia race play out, it's interesting. I don't know how the lessons apply here in Michigan, but I'll tell you that the guy that we're up against in the general election is going to be Will Schuette. And he has already wrapped himself with Donald Trump. Even though Trump tweeted his endorsement of him and he misspelled his name, he's proud to have his endorsement. In his opening statement about why he's running, it started with, I'm endorsed by Donald Trump, And then he said a few things, and he said, oh yeah, and I'm endorsed by Donald Trump, like he's doubling down on the Trump endorsement. Which, I look at Trump's numbers in Michigan, and I'm trying to understand what the strategy is here. Maybe it's just a primary strategy, and then he's gotta figure out what to do in the general election. But, you know, it's like, as I get around the state, and I talk to people all across the state, I don't believe that that kind of doubling down on Donald Trump is a winning strategy for them. I really don't. And you know, I talked about that. I was at APAC last night, right? The Arab American Political Action Committee, and you know, there are a lot of my friends in the Arab American community who are kind of conservative. They're kind of Republican leaning, right? And Donald Trump has unified everyone, and I think that, you know, it's for a lot of horrifying reasons that we're seeing this level of activity that I see everywhere I go across our state, but I think it's extremely positive. Here's what I know. When we show up for one another's fights, we win. When I'm at a science march, or an immigration rally, or a Black Lives Matter event, or I'm at a healthcare rally, or you know, any of the others that have happened in these last 10 months, I see us turning out for one another's fights, and that's when we really are the majority and when we start to set the agenda. I don't think we change who we are. I think we talk about what we care about everywhere we go, and we do it in a way that is real and inclusive, so that we pull more people into this effort. I'm excited about what I'm seeing, but I'm talking to people who are very fearful. I talked to some young men who are DACA from the west side of the state who are extremely worried. I think real leaders do things like Gina Raimondo did in Rhode Island, where she raised money to fund the DACA application renewals for all of the people within her state's borders. You know, I look at people like Jay Inslee in Washington State that stood up and took on Trump on the immigration ban. That's the kind of leadership that we need, and I think that as I navigate this campaign, that's what I look to for inspiration, and that I hope one day someone looks at what I'm doing and says, we've got to keep doing that too. Yeah, thanks. Let me wrap up. My brother's at Ruby Burger right now getting me something to eat. Yes.
Okay, just to bring kind of the racial climate issues home to us, we've had many incidents of racism on our campus for years, but particularly several this semester, as I'm sure that you have been aware of. And I'm wondering if you're thinking about anything that, as governor, you could do to support students in issues of campus climate and, you know, push the university to support students. Kind of, what are your thoughts on what's going on here?
Well, so a governor who recognizes the need can make a big difference, because the bully pulpit that comes with the governor's office is huge. But also the governor is the one that proposes the budget and negotiates the budget. Now I'll tell you that I, as a survivor of sexual violence at a university in this state, I see that we have a governor who's giving lip service to doing something about it, but it's only backed up by like $500,000. It doesn't do anything to change the culture. It doesn't do anything to fix the problem. And frankly, when they were creating that, guess who they didn't ask to be a part of it? The one survivor in the legislature that had a real reason to be at the table. And so I tell you that because I know that in order for me to build a platform that's going to not just get me elected, but that's going to make a difference, to make our agenda a reality, I got to make sure that I am empowering and listening to and including people with all different issues across our state. If there was a person from Flint around the governor's table when they made the decision to go to the Flint River as their water source, it never would have happened. So I think about that in terms of what my leadership would look like, and it would be about ensuring that that our voices are around the table, that the cabinet I create, to the appointments on commissions, to the budget that I write, to appointments to the bench, reflect what the diversity and the need is of the people of the state. teaches here in the Ford
Madam
School
Governor.
too. All right, now that you're here, I can tell a funny story, and then I really will wrap it up and go eat my Blumpy burger. But when I was in my last term in the legislature, at Michigan State Law School was, they were talking to me about the possibility of going and teaching at the law school at MSU. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, "Oh, Gretchen, your passion's not law, it's policy. You should talk to University of Michigan and see if they want you to come down and teach at the Ford School. It's the best school around." And I said, "Oh, like, it's that easy. You just call the U of M and they're just gonna ask you to come teach." But I did a little due diligence and I looked to see who was teaching here at the University of Michigan as adjunct faculty. And it's a phenomenal group of people that are here. I mentioned Joe Schwartz earlier. Fred Ruff is one of them. Rusty Hills also teaches here. But they're all cut from a similar cloth, right? And what I mean by that is when the lobbyist was in my office, I said, "Cynthia, in order to teach at the Ford School, do you have to be an old white Republican dude?" You know I love you, Craig. But that was her reaction. She laughed and she said, "Would you be interested in coming down?" I said, "Yes, of course." And anyway, that's how it all got started, where they offered me a spot to teach a course that I created that I called Running, Serving, and Leading in the Legislative Body. And it was, after 14 years of getting my teeth kicked in as the leader of the resistance, it was so great to be around students for a year, and it really fired me up, and so much so, look at, I'm running for governor.